Hello and welcome to Pearl Magazine. Hong Kong is still going through the most severe fifth wave of the COVID-19 pandemic. Despite different anti-epidemic measures, infection numbers took some time to fall. The much-anticipated compulsory testing has since been suspended. Is there a roadmap to recovery, and how will people live with the virus going forward?
I'm beginning to not be so familiar with Causeway Bay anymore. Shops never close so early during weekdays, maybe 9 or 10 p.m. But they're closed by 8 today.
Tim works in Causeway Bay. He used to dine out after work.
On weekdays, I dine out with friends or my girlfriend, but not anymore because of the dine-in ban.
Since January, dining in after 6 p.m. in restaurants has been banned. 2 months on, with only takeaway customers, many restaurants have shut down altogether.
Hong Kong people walk fast. They're rushing to get home or to buy food home. They're tired from work and a little helpless.
Tim's hobby is photography. He enjoys taking photos of the countryside. In recent years, inspired by the epidemic, he started taking photos of urban landscapes.
We get tired from working, but I feel tired from fighting the virus. Everything is aimed for dynamic zero. Now the economy is reduced to zero.
Tim's family was diagnosed with COVID-19. He's developed a sense of helplessness from his personal experience.
I called the government but couldn't get through. The hotline could never be connected. That so-called help means that they can respond to you 5 to 7 days later. With such low efficiency, I might as well rely on myself.
Amid the medical delays, Tim says the government should shoulder some responsibility.
Everyone knows it's like there's no end to this pandemic. The government makes policies, but if policies keep changing every day, how can people follow them? They say planning can't keep up with changes. They keep changing, which makes people feel that they have no clue.
無論我哋對於香港未來有幾多嘅大計啦，而家頭等大事都係盡快更加好咁控制嗰個疫情啦，係達至可以同內地免檢疫咧係人員往來。
After the end of the fourth wave in 2021, things appeared to be under control. For a period, there were no local cases. The government was almost ready to reopen the border with mainland China.
我哋就喺呢度俾少少希望。呢啲處所咧，我哋會盡我哋嘅努力咧，俾大家可以營業啊。不過到時咧就係以疫苗氣泡咧為一個基礎。
At the beginning of January this year, daily new infections remained at double digits. The government went about its usual anti-epidemic policy. Little did anyone know an epic storm was already on the horizon. Ben has been operating a hair salon for many years. Last December, he opened a new 3,000-square-foot shop. Having invested about $2 million, he was expecting to break even within 2 years. But with the fifth wave, that target is no longer possible. The biggest hit is the government's decision to shut a number of establishments, including hair salons.
We used to sell shampoo, but we had to find out for weeks if we could let customers come pick up their goods. Because we closed, we're not supposed to log any income.
賣少少嘢，見到你有入帳就代表唔得咧？初諗住我哋通常諗住停14日嘅啫嘛。
At first, we thought it's just 14 days. I was horrified to hear business will be closed until April 20th. We were shocked. That's being closed for 2 months, which is a long time. Employees and hairstylists may switch jobs. Many issues would happen.
With a long shutdown in mind, Ben started offering home services.
For about 2 to 3 weeks, as we were preparing door-to-door haircut, suddenly we were allowed to reopen. Our marketing colleagues had already gone through meetings, done online promotions, but suddenly we could reopen 2 days later.
On March 8th, the government said it had considered the needs of the public and decided to allow hair salons to reopen March 10th.
I didn't know how to react. We were preparing for haircuts at home, and suddenly we could reopen. We had to rearrange in just 1 day to deal with unfamiliar things like the rules, checking Leave Home Safe app, vaccination records.
While hair salons were closed, the epidemic in Hong Kong continued to deteriorate. When the closure was announced in February, the number of confirmed cases ranged from several hundred to 1,000 daily. By the time the reopening was announced in March, the number of daily confirmed cases had exceeded 10,000.
Why were we allowed to reopen? I have no idea. They just said it's public needs. This demand existed even when we had to close. Why did they suddenly realize this after 29 days? I have no idea.
Unlike speed-cutting outlets, Ben earns higher profit from dyeing and perming hair. Despite the resumption of business, it takes time to recover. After experiencing the chaos of closing and opening, Ben remains concerned about the uncertainty of the future.
After all, we are a designated premise. With these policy changes, it's difficult to keep up. We just have to follow.
For the first time, hair salons and barbershops were included in the closed premises. But they were lucky to be able to reopen after just 1 month. Many other listed premises aren't as fortunate.
Although all sporting facilities were ordered to close, we still managed to organize some private lessons. That's until meetings were limited to 2 persons. Only one-on-one courses were left, but the demand for that was low, and so was our income.
Ken used to run a sports education company specializing in rope skipping and training. As the pandemic eased last year, the company saw its business gradually recover.
Throughout the semester, schools reopened and other classes resumed too. 70% of the business has recovered.
However, when the 5th wave hit, everyone was brought back to earth. Ken's company suffered a $2 million loss and had to apply for government-guaranteed loans to survive.
It's a loan, not a grant. In this wave, I lost about $1 million from January to April. If this continues, I don't know how long it will take to recover.
Since the beginning of the outbreak, Ken and his team have been adjusting to cope with the ever-changing anti-epidemic measures. For instance, he's teaching skipping rope through online classes. Ken is not optimistic about the outlook.
Many beginners need coaches to guide them by their side. They need a sense of success in various aspects. They need games and competitions.
Ken can't see an end to his plight, so he's decided to diversify into the food and beverage industry.
I just remember that before the opening, the 3rd wave was just over, and most Hong Kong people would think that there may not be a 4th or 5th wave. But the 5th wave is even more serious.
The catering industry is hit the hardest in this epidemic. Ken is determined to meet the challenges, but he still has one hurdle he's unable to overcome.
We've worried zero infection wouldn't work. We feel more pressure from the erratic policies, which means uncertainties and reluctance to invest.
As an investor, Ken says Hong Kong's business environment is at its most uncertain time.
With so many constraints and the epidemic, how do you plan for the future? At times, I feel pessimistic about the future.
When we come back, a lesson learned from our neighbor. Stay with us. Welcome back to Pearl Magazine. While Hong Kong suspended its much-anticipated compulsory universal testing for its population, Shanghai went through with its own test, and Shenzhen also completed its 7-day lockdown earlier. What can Hong Kong learn from its neighbor? Although the SAR government says that pandemic measures will gradually be relaxed in stages, can we really relax going forward? Last month, 86 new COVID cases were reported in Shenzhen. The following day, authorities announced an immediate lockdown for a week and launched 3 rounds of testing for all residents across the city. During this period, public transportation and subways were suspended. The city's communities were closed, non-essential businesses stopped operations, and people were asked to work from home.
All major restaurants are still open, only for takeaway though. Every day, each family is allowed to let one person go out to buy food and necessities.
Edward Sun, a Hong Kong resident living in Shenzhen, said that the lockdown came suddenly, but he wasn't worried. Some neighborhoods have confirmed cases. Residents are not allowed to go out except for testing. The authorities send a box of free supplies, and residents can also order online food delivery.
The whole arrangement is fairly smooth. The government can take care of the basic daily needs of citizens.
Sun lives in Luohu, a high-risk area. Daily testing was required early on and remained unchanged after the lockdown. On the 4th day of the city's closure, due to more confirmed cases in nearby communities, restrictions were tightened.
They worried about community transmission. There is a designated time and place for testing at the entrance and exit of the residential community, so there will be no contact between people in different communities.
Shenzhen's strict anti-epidemic measures also sparked discussions in Hong Kong on whether it could be used for reference, but Sun doubts the possibility.
Locking down in the mainland city requires a lot of resources and manpower. All civil servants and teachers volunteered this time. I don't know if Hong Kong can do that.
As for the suspension of Hong Kong's citywide compulsory testing, Sun believes that decision-making should be fast.
It's not herd immunity or zero infection, but it became a rather odd situation that you still have confirmed cases while the restriction cannot be completely lifted.
Shenzhen's 7-day, 3 rounds of testing ended last month with a total of 535 confirmed cases found. The authorities announced that they had achieved dynamic zero. Except for some areas in Futian, the measures in most districts of Shenzhen have ended. People's lives have gone back to normal. In Hong Kong, the 5th wave of the epidemic has infected more than 1 million people. Although there are signs of a decline in the number of confirmed cases in a single day, the situation is still severe. Hong Kong and mainland authorities believe that it is not the right time to invest limited resources on a citywide testing right now.
If we do it in the later stage, there will be positive cases everywhere. You can't identify the areas to control or stop the transmission, so this will be an obstacle.
Ms. Ko's helper tested positive earlier, and her family of 4 were also infected, one after another.
As soon as I got home, I disinfected the house. But still, my children had a fever the next day. After all, we all live together. The risk of infection exists. So you should be prepared that home isolation means all of you will be infected.
Ms. Ko worried that her son's condition would worsen, but there was no medicine for him at home.
My younger son is only 3, and I was worried that he would have convulsions because he's had it before. If it is caused by a fever, we wouldn't know how to save him.
So she called the government's designated clinics, hoping to make an appointment, but the hotline was never answered.
Those lines just wouldn't connect. I kept calling, but it's like either no one's answering or hanging up before connecting.
Legislator Leung Hae believes that although there are many different channels for making appointments, the healthcare system cannot handle the large number of confirmed cases.
If you are lucky enough, we can make an appointment for the next day. If we are not lucky enough, we may not be able to make appointment at all. So the bottleneck is that there are only 4,300 of quotas every day, and the demand is far more than that.
He's also worried that the COVID-positive patients may not be sent to the hospital in time and will miss the opportunity to take oral medicine for the treatment of the coronavirus.
We are concerned that the patients may not have access to the anti-COVID drugs within the best treatment time, and the best treatment time is 3 to 5 days after the infection.
The government's current key strategy is to reduce deaths, reduce severe illness, and reduce infections. But the daily number of confirmed cases is still in the thousands, with daily deaths still over 100. Chief Executive Carrie Lam decided to maintain social distancing measures until later this month. Her return to normal plan will take place in 3 phases over 3 months. The first phase will start on April 21st. Most of the listed premises can be reopened, with the limit on gatherings to be relaxed from 2 to 4 people. Restaurants will resume dine-in at night until 10 p.m. In Stage 2, the remaining listed premises will reopen. In the final stage, all restrictions will be lifted.
第6波一定會嚟，一定會嚟。呢一個唔係話我哋可唔可以避免。
The University of Hong Kong estimates that about 4.4 million people have already been infected with the virus. If the situation continues to improve, they expect the number of new infections a day to drop to triple digits by April 21st. Gabriel Leung pointed out that the government should choose whether to continue the dynamic zero policy or let it die down and become endemic.
而家唔係一個兩條路線之爭嘅抗疫嘅工作，抗疫嘅目標咧係好清晰嘅，同國家係一致。 所以盡快壓制疫情，等到我哋嘅社會可以盡早咧係恢復常態，係我哋嘅抗疫目標。
The government says that restrictions can be lifted if the epidemic situation slows down and there is no rebound. But how many new confirmed cases in a single day will be considered safe to relax?
We should handle that very carefully. I think the government needs to set standards to relax the restrictions based on the number of confirmed cases, the activity of the virus, and whether there will be invisible chain of transmission. It shouldn't be in the middle of April or on any fixed days in April.
No matter what level the epidemic goes to, if there is no continuous decrease in positive cases, there's no room for relaxation at all. For example, If the cases drop by 20% in a week, the Omicron has 2 transmission cycles a week, which is equal to a 10% decrease each cycle. If that will be the case, it's possible to cut off the transmission in a few weeks.
Still, there are worries that a 6th wave of the virus may eventually come.
It feels that we can't keep up with the epidemic. We're always behind. The government doesn't seem to be helpful or worried about our citizens.
Dr. Leung says we must improve case tracking now to keep the number of infections to a minimum.
You have to find ways to detect cases, trace contacts, quarantine or isolate them, and cut off the transmission chain. As long as the speed of cutting is faster than the spread, there's still a chance to achieve zero infection.
That's Pearl Magazine this week. See you again next week.